welcome back to another episode of Direct Edition. I'm your host, Dave, and right now I'm filming myself. This is going to be the first episode that I've ever filmed of me while I'm recording, which I don't know if I feel super comfortable about that, but it's the only thing I can think of to make reels that involve me, the host. It is Monday, July 22nd. The new episode came out today, and the new episode was about kind of the chaotic brain that I have and the television show The Bear, which I am absolutely in love with, which helps my chaotic brain. I just want to say thanks to everybody who has listened to this podcast at least once or maybe half a time. And, to the couple of people that disliked it on YouTube, they actually actively hit the dislike button. That's okay, man. That's just a reflection of you. Anyway, today has been a day of very just emotional ups and downs because I don't know how to handle this. This is still very fresh to me and very new. And even though I am the hobby hero, sometimes heroes, they cry. I wasn't crying today. A little bit of good news personally for me. I just signed a lease on a new house, and I'm going to be moving in about a month, or over the course of the next month, which is really cool because that means I'm going to have a dedicated studio for shooting video and recording podcasts. It's going to be totally just that. There's not going to be any other use for it other than that. So I'm really excited for that. I'm really excited to move ahead and upgrade all of the things, whether it's the recording you're hearing right now, or it's the videos you watch on YouTube, or both. There's a couple of you that really do consume both. I'm looking at you, Tyler. So I'm really excited for that. That's going to be a blast. I hate moving, but it's a necessary evil. So that's a personal awesomeness. What else is going on? Well, there's been a huge announcement, a groundbreaking announcement in the world of comics. And you guys know that I sell comics for a living. And you also know that I'm not really a big fan of those things. Yeah, the things that are adorning my wall in my bedroom, these CGC slabs. Well, the big announcement, oh my God, what a shocker. PSA is getting into grading comics, something I've known about for about 5 months because the consortium, as I like, or the holy trinity of influencers that are at the forefront of this, well, they've known about it for months. So I know that. And, I'm probably stepping on some toes right now, but that's my job. And it kind of makes me think about how, as much as I do not like CGC, I don't like slabs, I do own several. They are big Batman books that are important to me. Most of them that are on there came from the Jim Healy collection because he had them slabbed. And I figured, well, here's my chance to own these books at a good price. And for those of you that don't give a shit about comics, grading has been around for a while. And it started in sports cards. And then it eventually went to comics in the early 2000s. But my biggest gripe with it is that it's so inconsistent. And it's always going to be inconsistent because it's based off human error or human opinion or the eyes of other humans. And it's not always the same person looking at the comics. Plus, why are we giving power to companies to tell us what our stuff is worth or what condition it's in? Like, you can get the same comic slabbed. And then eventually when PSA gets in, you'll be able to get the same comic slabbed from 3 different companies. You can send it to CGC, crack it out, send it to CBCS, crack it out, and send it to PSA. And you are going to most likely get 3 different grades. Right there is the crack in the system. And the influencers and the people that champion CGC or champion PSA, they shouldn't have power over you. They shouldn't be able to opinionate you because they have a vested interest in those companies. The reason that I keep talking about being a hobby hero is because when we discovered that CGC scandal, it kind of showed the cracks in grading, as a whole. And there have been other scandals where people have defrauded these companies and gotten fake cards slabbed or whatever, pick your fraud and just insert it into a grading company. And the thing is people should learn their lessons. But the problem is we live in a world where news travels fast and news changes by the minute. And the next thing takes over and the next thing takes over and the next thing takes over. I mean, look, January 6th wasn't terribly too long ago, and he's still running for president. So there's that. But I laugh. I laugh and I get a little miffed because I am protective of the comic hobby, the comic collecting or reading, whatever you want to put that adjective, I am protective of it for the reason that, and I've gone over this a bunch of times, but it's kind of like it bears repeating. I'm protective of it because I watched it collapse. I was there. I was in 1992, 1993, 1994, 95, I was 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and I watched this shit go down the tubes, and the quality reflects also like these are symbiotic relationships. Like if comics aren't selling, then writers and artists are going to have to find other ways to make income. And that might mean that they go to Hollywood, or that might mean that they just go back to civilian life and, do something, teach art class. I can give you an example of that. That is probably the product of a boom bust situation. And that's Stephen Platt. Like Stephen Platt rose to stardom very quickly with this crazy art style that was like a mix of McFarlane and it was like just the perfect tornado. But then the comics industry wasn't good for him or whatever. And he like went to Hollywood, and we lost out on getting all of these great Stephen Platt comics. We only got a handful. But the reason why I'm really protective about it too is because like I care. This is not just collectibles. This is not just I am not blind to the fact that comics are worth money. That's how I make my living. But I read. I mean, right next to my bedside, there's 2 piles of comics that I am, to read. And then there's a mess of comics that I've already read that I just have to put away. It is not just a cover. It is not just an appearance. It is an art form, and it is also literature. And I also am a proponent of treating comics as literature, not some art form that should be a second tier thing. I mean, it's $1 billion industry that the Hollywood has drained and keep draining. And that's okay. Like I have no problem with the comics movies at all. I like most of them. Even the ones I don't like, I have no problem. If one Marvel movie turns, that makes $1 billion, turns 1,000 people into readers or 500 people into comic readers, cool. Because where are those people going to go to get their comics? They're going to go to comic shops. And if comic shops keep succeeding, then the comic industry as a whole will keep succeeding. But people that just are into slabs and they're into grading books and they don't give a fuck. They don't care. They're just like, here's this era of comics that represents my childhood. I am so childish, or maybe so uninterested, or maybe so uninteresting that all I care about is this batch of years that these artists drew comics. I don't care about what's in between those pages or what's in between those covers. I just care about, hey, I have this. Look, it's the highest grade. Like, I want to feel that I can't ignore that, but I can't. And that's just the type of person I am, to a fault. But if you're into trophies, then just say it. Like, stop pretending that you're interested in this medium and say, I just want a bunch of trophies. Like if my wall was just CGC books, not actual artwork that was published in a comic or, artwork from a comic artist. But if I was just CGC, like I would just be like, yeah, I like having them on my wall. They're cool trophy pieces. It's like, it's when you go to somebody's house and they have this huge record collection, or they have this huge collection of anything, books. And I'm like, oh, what's your favorite book? Oh, I don't read them. Oh, so you're just decorating. That's what you're doing. And look, I know there's nothing inherently wrong about that, but I still can't get past the fact that, like, try and be interested. Try and learn. Try and read. Like, I know it's a luxury having time to read a lot of stuff. But then, I look at my old roommate and my friend Charis. She would read like 120 books a year, some crazy amount that I couldn't fathom. It takes me like, if I try to put my nose down and read 10 novels a year, that's an accomplishment for me, because I don't I don't digest them as quick. So it takes a little more time for me. And even if it's a page turner, something that I really enjoy, I still need time to put it down to think about it. Where if like on my bed right now is a graphic novel, Space Mullet, which is one of, or maybe it's Daniel Warren Johnson's first graphic novel. I started reading it this morning and I just read one issue and then I put it down because I needed time to digest it, but I can actually run through a graphic novel pretty quickly. But I don't choose to. Like, I like to savor things. And I know that's a personality trait. Not everybody's like that. And what I'm trying to say is that, like, I don't like influencers. And then, there are some of them that I don't actually have a personal problem with. Like, I understand they got to do what they got to do to get clicks. But at the same time, like, I'm not into this thing, and I will push back as hard as I can against it because that is in my blood. That is who I am. I know I have to consider myself also an influencer, but I want people to read. I want people to learn. Like, I'm not a teacher, right? I'm never going to call myself a teacher. My mom, she's a retired teacher. My best friend Seth, he's a teacher. But I want to advocate for people to learn more and read more and enjoy it at a molecular level. And then I know that, we live in a time where superficiality is the way to live. Like, you have social media and you depict yourself as how you want people to see you. I do that to a point sometimes, but I don't know how to do that. Honestly, like, if I do it, it's mostly by accident. Hence this podcast. It'll be edited, but it'll be edited mostly for ums and, stupid things that I said that don't make sense to me. That's about it. And I know that's probably a bad idea. As the audience grows, I should probably fine tune it a little bit, but I don't want to. And so I just get really kind of, I get defensive when I see these people hawking these companies left and right. They hop around and they're like, well, you should do this and this, or we're, like, at least be honest about it, and I'm not going to name names, but you all know who's at the forefront of this. And if you don't, you can find out. I don't know if they're acting like this is a brand new thing, but it's not. And I call it as I see it. And that's really how it's always been. It's probably why I lose friends sometimes, because the honesty is a little too much for people to handle. The craziness is a little too much for people to handle, but fuck if I care. Like, I lived my life for a long time in one way, and I realized one day I was just like, I honestly, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this before, but I used to be really angry all the time in like a way that it was palpable to other people. Like, I can be angry and then shut it off. I can be angry, but also be funny. But I saw American History X in the theaters. I don't remember what year that came out, 90, maybe 98. And I left that theater and I was just like, man, there's no point in always being angry and shitty and hateful. Because hate, like, anger is different. Anger, Zach De La Roca said, is a gift. Hate kind of comes from deep down inside. I get angry a lot still, but I don't really get hateful. So I came out of American History X and I just felt like there was no point in being hateful like that anymore and being angry. And I wish I could say I lived the rest of my life, the next 25 years, in a path of non-hatred and non-anger, but whatever. But anger is truly a gift when you direct it at something. And I get angry because I've seen comics go away, and I've seen comic stores shut down, and I've seen people lose interest in it because the comics weren't worth what they said they were going to be worth. Like, you can't look at it like that. I collect original art based on the fact that I love having original art. I am very well aware of the fact that it will, or is, it is viewed as an investment, and in reality, it is an investment. But I didn't buy the 2 Todd McFarlane pages I bought because I think in 20 years, I'll be able to sell them for 5 times what I bought them for. I bought them because I fucking love his art. I have loved his comics and his art since I was a kid. And then an opportunity came around and I'm like, I can afford to buy this. So I will. The same with Jack Kirby. Like, today, matter of fact, Monday, July 22nd, me and Andrew Post are going to be recording with the Jacked Kirby podcast about the zine that we self-published. And I bought my first Jack Kirby page last year. And it's not a Marvel book. It's not a DC book. It's actually one of the last books he did. It's Satan 6. And it's a splash page that Mike Royer inked. And it's so cool. Like, it's fitting to me to have bought a Kirby page from an era where I actually had the comic as it came out. I can't say that, if I bought a 1970s Fourth World book page, original page, or a 60s Marvel page, or anything like that, because it's like, as much as I want it and I can't afford it, I found something that I could afford, that I love, that I actually owned when it came out. Like, that's like, if I'm going to hook onto nostalgia, it's going to be something like that. It's going to be like, sure, I own the comic. It's $1 comic, but now I own a page from that comic. And like the same thing, like I bought a Stephen Platt Moon Knight page, and Stephen Platt was one of those artists that I love as a kid. I own the books. I've always owned the books, but this is a chance to go a little bit deeper and get a page, an interior page. So like, I am one of those people, and I know that do not represent all collectors, most collectors, whatever. But this is my podcast, so I'm sharing me. I want to dive in more. There's nothing that I like, whether it be movies, music, art, book, like anything that I collect or whatever that I'm interested in, that I don't want to learn more about. Some point in my life, there was, when I was younger, I didn't. But when you're 20 or you're 25 or you're 18, like, you're just interested in like whatever your friends are doing, whatever you're doing, in your life at that point, smoking weed, drinking, going after girls, all three, probably not a good combination, but, anyway, so I just, that's the people that I want around me, the people that want to learn more, because I'll be 45 this year. I'm single. I don't have any kids. So I just want to connect with the people that are in my life. And then, the new people that I meet in my life, if they're worth the time, because like, let's be honest, when you're in your 40s, you cannot be having your time wasted by people. Just like last week I talked about, I don't like wasting my time. I don't like wasting other people's time. And I don't like having other people waste my time, which is fine. Very practical sentences there. But when you're at that age, like when you connect with somebody and it works out, whether it's a friendship or a significant other, whatever it is, like that's worth putting, like effort into. And so I want to be friends with people that have a little depth to them. And if you're my close friend, or even if you're a peripheral friend, but for my close friends, and this applies to you, thinking about your close friends, whoever you are listening, think about it. Like, okay, what do I share in common with this person? For example, I'll just give Dave Correa a shout out, because me and Dave have pretty much connected on everything since our friendship began. And it's just like, we have like a deep connection of art and the comics that we read and the movies we like and the way we like to run business and the way we like to travel. And like, we see eye to eye in almost everything for the most part, and have since we've known each other. And like, we share some of the same favorite movies and video games. And like, when we talk about something that's going on in the world, if it has to do with world politics or just whatever, it's usually an eye-to-eye situation, and that's why we've been friends for so long. So it's wanting deeper connection, and in wanting a deeper connection, I want a deeper connection of the art that I love and the things I consume. And the reason why I've gone to Scotland 4 times is because I have a very deep connection with the country and a very deep connection with the people there. I just love it. And I think that's going to be the same thing when I visit Japan. I feel like I'm going to have a really deep connection with a lot of the not the people, maybe, because I don't know anybody that lives there besides Sean, Japan Book Hunter, but like just the aspects of their culture. Like, I think I'll have a connection with what they try to do with their lives, and like working hard and kind of like being a very efficient society and stuff like that. Or maybe I won't, but I already feel like, at least in terms of their love for manga and my love for comics, like meeting people based off that is going to forge a deep connection. Somebody recently, that's a Davengerino, Derek. I won't use your last name, but you know who you're talking. Well, there's 2 Dereks. Actually, I guess I have a good connection with both Derek's, and for different reasons. And Derek B, we've had phone conversation. I feel like I've known him for 20 years, and we've known each other for like a year and a half. And so within diving into art, and then also talking to people about that art, you start to form a bond. You start to feel a connection. So when people start talking to me about like, oh, well, what do you think about this grading thing and this, I'm just like, I fucking like, it means nothing to me. I don't understand how you can't look at that and just be like, this is such bullshit. And this is such a, like, paying a company to tell me what condition this is in. This company or these companies have showed flaws and cracks that they refuse to fix. And we're just going to look past it. And I don't care. Like, I think it's so stupid. I don't begrudge you for collecting it. Okay. I was talking to Joe Scar the other day, and I said, look, I know you're a big comics fan. You read comics. We will talk about storylines and comics and stuff we read for hours. But he likes to collect slab books, and the books that he loves, he likes to get the highest grade. I don't begrudge that. But if he was sitting there all day and be like, I love CGC, I love PSA, I love CBCS, like, these guys are going to change the game. Like, you're just letting another company fucking bend you over and take you to Pound Town. And look, this is just my opinion, whatever. I would rather not be tethered to one of these places to tell me what something I have is worth. Let's switch it over. No more talk about that grading bullshit. Let's talk about more TV, because I made a really kind of like, I pointed out something really funny to Joe the other day on the phone. I watched Game of Thrones when it came out. I loved it. The last season was rushed and the end didn't really hit, but that doesn't make me say like I hate Game of Thrones. You know, like, I can look at something and be like, the end is whatever, but I really enjoyed it all the way through for the most part. So I liked it. Like, I liked Game of Thrones. That's where I go. I can recognize there's something wrong with the end, but I can also like the entire series, at the same time. And when I started watching it, I didn't like it at first. I recognized, it was like, it's like a R-rated soap opera and everybody just gets killed and whatever. I watched the first season and I was kind of like, And then I went back when the second season came out, and I watched the first season in anticipation of the second season. And then I was hooked. That's all I needed was a rewatch. Most times, consuming a movie or an album or something like that, your first watch or listen doesn't always hit, and then you go back and listen to it with a little more fine tuning and like attention to detail, and you're like, oh, this is really good, or oh, this is really bad. So I watched Game of Thrones, and we were and so that's the precursor, and then House of Dragons came out, and I waited until the first season was over to watch it. I didn't listen to anybody talk about it. I didn't endure any spoilers. I didn't talk to any friends that watched it. I just wanted to wait. And so I watched it and I enjoyed it. It still is a soap opera. That's all it is. It's a very violent, medieval, fantastical soap opera. And I'm okay with that. And so I was talking to Joe about the new season, which I just started watching after I think like there were 6 episodes out. I started watching it. And he was talking on the phone and he's like, I tried to watch it. Fuck that show. My wife watches the show and she loves it. And I tried to watch and I can't stand it. And I started laughing, and I was pulled back to sometime in 2011 when my friends Will and Phil, who were roommates, went off about Game of Thrones in the same way. I tried to fucking watch. It's so fucking boring. I fell asleep. Blah, blah. And I said to Joe, I'm like, it's kind of funny. People who watch Game of Thrones, they like it, or, they're whatever. They have their opinion about it. But people that don't watch it, that have watched one episode, they all have the same outlook. Oh, I fucking hate that show. Like, it's not, I didn't like it, or it doesn't interest me. They go to 100 miles an hour immediately if they didn't like it. And it's always the same. And it kind of feels like any show or movie that kind of has like a trend or a big buzz about it. Like a Game of Thrones, or like a Star Wars show or movie, or a Marvel show or movie, or Lost. The Wire's the only one. The Wire and The Sopranos, if it's about crime, people love it, or they say I didn't watch it. I have never heard anybody go off on The Sopranos or off on The Wire. So crime, that's the American standard. But when you're talking about anything outside the realms of nonfiction, or could be nonfiction, like The Wire's not a real story, neither is The Sopranos, but they could be. But when you go outside of that and somebody watches the show and they don't like it, they don't say they don't like it. How many people have you asked, if you're a Lost fan, how many people have you asked, oh, did you watch? I fucking hate it. I don't fucking get that show. I don't understand why people like that show. The ending sucked. Did you watch the whole show? No, I just know the ending sucked. And then Star Wars fans are clearly the worst. And I'm a Star Wars fan. But I didn't like The Acolyte. I have my problems with it. But I'm not like, it fucking ruined Star Wars. And then comic book stuff. Holy shit. Whew. I remember when Moon Knight came out. I loved Moon Knight. And so many people just, you don't get to see Moon Knight. It's the worst. I don't know. I used to be like that when I was younger. And I'm not hanging out with people that are in their 20s or their teens anymore. So the people I'm talking to and the people I'm hearing from are in their 30s or 40s or older. I take my dad as an example. My dad's gonna be 80 soon. And we went to go see, I took my parents to go see Godzilla -1 in black and white. And my mom liked it, and my dad didn't. But he didn't go, I fucking hated it. It's so bad. It's so stupid. It was just it was my thing. It's just interesting how people react to stuff that they don't like now. And I'm sure I've been guilty of it. I mean, my old friend Scott could tell you stories about how I used to react to bands that I didn't like. Because when I was in my early 20s, I was really stubborn, and I was listening to a lot of nu metal, and pretty much that's it. Like nu metal, some punk, and then the Seattle stuff. But I wasn't receptive to a lot of new things, and my music tastes have since then shifted drastically. While I still love all that stuff, I am open to a lot of other things. And I think Nickelback's the only band that I will, or Nickelback and Creed are the only two bands that I'll just light them on fire as soon as somebody asks me about them. But, for a while I was salty against Radiohead for some reason. Cause when OK Computer came out, I liked it. And then one day I just didn't like it anymore. And I went salty on Radiohead. And I think I just started to, like I said, my taste changed. And so I would say I'll call them shithead. And then Coldplay came out and I would call them shitplay. I absolutely love both bands for the last 15 years now. But there was just this 3-year period, right in my early 20s, probably coincided with when I almost when I started to drink and stuff. Either way, I grew out of that. And that's the idea, right? I am not, it sucks, age, body. It does suck days, you get into your mid 40s and things just start hurting a little bit for no reason. And I'm just trying to resist the stagnation. And so I do embrace change. And I think that's the overall theme of some of the things that I talk about on the podcast, some of the things I talk about on the YouTube channel, and a lot of the things I just have in conversations with people. Is it just I'm trying to always embrace the change and embrace the new things that come my way. And that goes into a little openness and being open to things, trying new things, reading things I might not be into. And I think that's my biggest pushback on people that just collect things to hold as trophies. At the end of the day, you want to have a conversation with somebody about something that you own. And where does that conversation go? Where do your conversations really go when you are just yeah, I got that book in a 9.8. Cool. I try to enjoy things that I have a connection with. And I don't understand just owning things to say that you have them. But that's the difference in personality, and that's the difference in people. I don't really begrudge the person, but I just wish that that wasn't the thing, the normal thing. Like, I have this thing. It's so cool. Why? I can't tell you. I'm not really trying to make any enemies with this, but at the same time, like, there's so many people that I associate with, people that listen to what I'm, recording right now, people I'm friends with, people that buy books from me, that appreciate the fact that there are people out there that are going to say, no, like, there is more than just putting these things in a plastic tube. There is more value in these things than just what a 9/8 dictates. There is history, there is people's creations, there is blood, sweat, tears, ink, and words that go into these things. There's stories behind the art. Recently, I just filmed the top 10 best Todd McFarlane covers. Now, obviously, it's opinion based, and it's my opinion based, and obviously, other people will agree or disagree. That's fine. That's the whole idea of opinions. But I tried to talk about like why I love these things, and maybe if I knew, if there's some knowledge that I can impart on, on the viewer as to like a little more insight that I know from, kind of like studying Todd. And if somebody learned something like that, I remember in the early days of my YouTube channel, I did a kind of like shared my personal collection of Todd McFarlane comics at that point. And I pulled out a bunch of like books that people didn't know that he either did the cover for or that he did the interior artwork for. And I remember hearing from some people early on then, like, thanks for, showing these off and like giving me some other things to go after. And if that's going to be my legacy in the comic world as a YouTuber, that's what I want. Like, somebody went out and bought those books because Todd McFarlane's art was in them. And whether they read them or not, or they flipped through them or looked, like, they went out and bought these books, not graded, but they just went and bought, because a lot of these books had interior art. Like Daredevil 241 has a Mike Zeck cover, but it's all interior art by Todd. And like, nobody's going to, nobody's going to see that art if they buy it graded as the first time they've ever owned that book. That's really what I want. Like, I talk about fanzines a lot, and I also talk about I do flip throughs of Comic-Con programs. And if somebody goes out and digs out some fanzines, like, I'm looking at you, Andrew. Andrew is a big fanzine guy, and we've kind of like shared fanzines that we found, and we're like, oh, look what's in here. Like, he's done a great job at showing off some interiors of fanzines of like well-known comic artists and some that aren't, like uncovering some history, because comics history, not only is it a long history, it's 100+ years, but there's so much of it that wasn't recorded. And, what was recorded was done in fanzines. And so it's just like, the only way the knowledge of this stuff that survives is if people share it. And it's one of those things that I've talked about with my brother before. If you're a kid of the 80s or the early 90s, you grew up watching MTV, and there was so much on MTV that is no longer around. Like, it's, if people taped it, put it on YouTube, or there's bootleg tapes around, like, that's it, because there's no archive of it. There's no recorded, and I'm going to tell a story. I totally forgot about this. We're going to do a little story to end this podcast and talking about history and like stories, and, how we're going to come back to this also at a later date, but about how these stories only survive if somebody tells them. So I want to say it was like the 1996, or it was 96 or 97, the All-Star game for the NHL. And I believe it was like the first year that the Phoenix Coyotes were a team. This is when I still collected hockey autographs. Somehow, me, my friend Derek, and I want to say it was my friend Kenny, we found out the Phoenix Coyotes were in town. So if you're a hockey fan and you remember the 90s, their lineup initially was fucking stacked. You had Mike Gartner, future Hall of Famer. You had Keith Tkachuk, future Hall of Famer. You had Jeremy Roenick, future Hall of Famer, or, well, at the time they were future Hall of Famers. Nikolai Hobby-Bulin was a goaltender. I want to say Shane Doan. They were a stacked team. We found out they were playing they were either playing the Rangers or the Devils, or they were in town to play both. And they couldn't practice at the arena for some reason. So they practiced at the Bayonne, New Jersey high school arena. I have no fucking clue how we found this out. We used to just find things out. It's a long time ago. There was a lot of beers and bong hits in between. So we go out to Bayonne, New Jersey, and we watch the skate. It's a small ice rink. There's nobody else there collecting autographs. It's just the three of us and maybe some kids that were there. I don't remember how we got approached, but we were approached by MTV. They were going to shoot a promo video outside for maybe it was like the skills competition, whatever it was. I've tried to find this and I can't find it, the video. But they were shooting a promo video with Roenick and Kachuk because they were all-stars. And I have the flyer somewhere that they were doing like a campaign promo of vote for Kachuk and Roenick, and that was the ticket for the ballot for the all-star game. Whatever it was, like it was something having to do with voting them on the ticket. That was shot. I used to have it on tape somewhere. I have no clue where that VHS is. I know it happened. I was there. I have the flyer somewhere, but try and find any evidence of it on the internet, and it does not exist. And so that's the thing. Like, I don't tell that story. Nobody remembers it except maybe Derek and Kenny and maybe Kachuk and Roenick. They've had a lot of concussions. I doubt they remember it. In that, it's just like, if we don't talk about this history, and this goes for everything, anything in life, the invention of the fucking door handle, whatever, like Simpsons, Matt Groening probably has a ton of history in his noggin, film history, U.S. history, politics, whatever it is, world history. These stories need to be told. And I'm not like a master storyteller, but I do never really stop talking. So, just hit record every once in a while. But if anybody can find a clip of that Roenick Kachuk thing, if I can find the flyer, I'll post a picture of it. But it's just one of those things that like I was involved with it. I was there, and I love that I got to be a part of that. But if I don't tell you that story, then it may not exist ever again. Just like the Paul White story that I told last season about the trial. It's out there. You can find some evidence of it and articles and like one newscast, but there was only 2 witnesses, and it was me and Dennis, and that's it. Everybody else, they weren't, if they were there, they never came forth. And it's funny, I had somebody on a comment say something about it, like, wasn't this talked about on Raw? I'm like, no, and if it was, you're the only one that remembers, because I sure as hell don't. So yeah, so that's the big thing, is that we just have to tell our stories, and we can share our opinions, as long as they're not trying to destroy somebody else. Like, yeah, share your opinions about this stuff. I want to hear your opinions on it, because after the slap scandal, I heard a lot of people's opinions, but a lot of them were just really stupid. They weren't opinions. They were people telling me to get a room with Matt Nelson and so on and so forth. So that's not really an opinion. That's an insult. Thank you again for listening to this podcast. I appreciate the positivity. I'm really always looking for comments and feedback, positive or constructive criticism. That's cool. I'm not above any of that kind of criticism, but please, any comments on the YouTube channel, you can leave comments on Spotify, you can leave a word review on Apple. All of that helps, especially the reviews and the comments and sharing this. It brings it to a new audience. I am definitely always trying to bring new people in. directeditionpodcast.com. It'll take you to my main website. You can listen to all episodes. You can watch the YouTube channel. You could do all of the Davenger things from that one website. Until next week, Dave from the West Coast Davengers directly signing off for Direct Edition.